Despite her impressive run of hits in the mid-2000s, Ciara hit a rocky point in her career by the end of the decade. Her third album, Fantasy Ride, was specifically the point where her commercial success started to wane, selling well below her first two albums. I have a video where I dive deeper into that record, but for now I'll just say that Fantasy Ride, despite being a great album, didn't live up to expectations, and some people blame this on the more pop-leaning sound it had, as opposed to the R&B and crunk sound of her previous works. Going into her fourth album, CeCe decided to go back to her roots and deliver an album that would remind people why they fell in love with her to begin with. Work began in September 2009, with Ciara's main collaborators for the project being Tricky Stewart and The Dream. Updates surrounding the record were kept to a minimum though, as her previous album had suffered from numerous leaks and legal issues, which understandably made her want to keep the new project tightly under wraps. In April 2010, Ciara revealed the name of the new album, Basic Instinct, which was a reference to the iconic 1992 film featuring Sharon Stone. She stated the album was going to be fun, sexy, confident, and cocky, filled with plenty of attitude and danceable beats. Audiences would soon get a taste of what she was talking about with the album's title track, which had a video made for it despite not being an official single. Basic Instinct, the song, references her return to R&B and how she is still that girl. This was a great way to kick off the era. It immediately set the tone for the rest of the album and addressed the criticisms she was receiving at the time. The album's official lead single, Ride, also dropped in April 2010 and became a pretty decent hit. A down-tempo R&B track, Ride is one of CeCe's sexiest songs. It's up there with Body Party as songs I would love to give a lap dance to. The video was especially hot, being intentionally minimal to emphasize her incredible dancing. It might have been a little too hot for some people though, as BET didn't even air the video or play it on 106 & Park. The ban caused some controversy, as Ciara was obviously upset, but still said she was willing to have a re-edited version of the video made that cut down on the sexiness. However, a rep from BET said that they gave their edits, but never received a response from Ciara's team, so maybe there was just some communication breakdown somewhere along the line. Irregardless, the video became popular on YouTube, and it was looking like the album could have been successful. The second single, Speechless, was released in September 2010. A mid-tempo synthy R&B song, Speechless is reminiscent of her earlier ballads, like Promise and Never Ever. It's a really pretty love song, and the video was similarly gorgeous, with some beautiful shots of Ciara. Unfortunately, the song didn't receive much promotion, and consequently failed to chart on the US Hot 100. Same goes for the third and final single, Gimme Dat, and I simply cannot forgive humanity for letting this one flop. Gimme Dat is an electro, hip-hop, dance banger with an irresistibly catchy hook. It's one of her most fun dance tracks in my opinion, and the video does the song justice, with Ciara once again just nailing this choreography. Sadly, Gimme Dat receives basically no support from her label, LA Face, operated by Jive Records, which meant CeCe had to pay tens of thousands of dollars to radio stations just for the chance of getting it played, and even paid more than $100,000 just to get the video made. Her efforts, sadly, didn't make the song a huge hit. It landed on a few more charts than Speechless, but it still underperformed. By the time the album dropped in December 2010, it seems like it was already dead in the water. Basic Instinct debuted at number 44 on the US Hot 200, selling just 37,000 copies in its first week. Not only was this the first time any of her albums missed the top 10, but it was also a very drastic decline sales-wise. Reception was mixed to favorable, with critics complimenting both her return to R&B as well as the dance pop cuts. I agree that there's a lot to like on Basic Instinct, from the techno-y, almost Eurodance-sounding heavy rotation, the blaring and braggadocious Once for Dinner, and Girls Get Your Money, which always reminded me of Beyonce's album B-Day. I don't know why, I could just totally hear it on that album. I feel like it fits that record's vibe really well. Also, I have to shout out the Japanese bonus track, This Is What Love Is, which is another electropop-y dance cut that sounds absolutely immaculate. My favorite song on Basic Instinct though is definitely Turn It Up, featuring Usher. If you want the essence of 2010, just listen to this song. It's exactly the kind of upbeat, explosive club track that was popular back then, and it's still one that I'll listen to when I'm going out to get myself hyped. I especially love the chorus when they say, "Turn it so loud we can raise the dead, brings them out of the grave." God damn, this fun party song took a morbid turn. The girls were reincarnating the deceased just to get them dancing. Turn It Up was the hit that got away. Usher himself was on a hot streak in 2010 with his album Raymond v. Raymond, so this could have been the shot in the arm Basic Instinct needed. Apparently, it was meant to be the fourth single, but plans fell through as Ciara tried to get out of her deal with Jive. She went as far as writing a letter to her fans on Facebook in February 2011, discussing her frustrations with how her last two albums were handled, and how she felt it would be best for them to part ways, which she would end up doing in May 2011. And with that, Basic Instinct essentially fizzled out, with little to no fanfare. Obviously, we don't know what was happening behind the scenes during this time, but it really seems like Ciara's label didn't have much faith in her, and didn't put the resources into promoting her as much as they did for her first two albums. Of course, public interest also plays a role in the singer's success, and audiences may have been over Ciara at this point. Considering the mixed response Fantasy Ride had, Basic Instinct had to really connect with people to get CeCe into the public's good graces. While she still had her core fanbase, it wasn't enough to propel the album to the heights of her previous works. Personally, I think Ride was a great lead single, but I would have picked Turn It Up as the follow-up, and released it in June 2010, so it could have been a summer hit. Obviously, I don't actually know if that would have worked, but I feel like it would have done a little better than Speechless, especially since it had Usher on it, whose popularity was at an all-time high in 2010. As far as the album itself goes, I'll admit it's not really one of my favorites by her. I think it pales in comparison, especially to her first three albums, and her fifth album. It's not that it's bad at all, but outside of Gimme Dat, Ride, and Turn It Up, I don't think the highlights from this one compare to the highlights on Goodies, The Evolution, Fantasy Ride, or her self-titled. I'd rank it just above Jackie and Beauty Marks, which are also good albums, but not the ones I typically revisit. Despite my lukewarm feelings, I do think Basic Instinct deserves to have proper promotion, and Ciara sure as hell shouldn't have had to pay to get her own single played on radio when she had the backing of a major label. I know it's not completely uncommon for signed artists to pay out of pocket for certain projects, but the fact that Jive didn't even attempt to give the album a big push really shows how little they believed in her. I'm not gonna say Basic Instinct would have been one of the biggest albums of the decade or anything, and there is only so much a label can do if the public interest isn't there, but I can't help but feel like this album was done a little dirty. CeCe would go on to have success with her 2013 album, released through Epic Records, and since then she's given us plenty of dance hits. Still, it's interesting to think where her career would have been now if Basic Instinct had been a hit, but sadly enough, it did not ride to the top of the charts.